All right, everyone, I am so excited to be here with Christine Horn. I just want to thank you so much for spending this time with me, Christine. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. It's good to see your face like in real time
Yes.
and talk to you. So thank you for having me.
So, Christine, I just want to start a little bit with just some of my crush that I have on you, because Christine knows how to talk to actors in a way that is so loving, and also is like, shut down the weirdness in your head and get that noise out of here. And you know, there's many people who can say, well, yeah, she's a straight shooter. And I think that sometimes just by saying someone's a straight shooter, or they tell you like it is, misses the heart of what I think you bring into your work, which is, I want you to shine your best light in the world and do so well in that audition room. And that's really where you've like honed in on this. I want to say it's magic, but it's not magic, because it is a skill that you're actually teaching, but that you've really grabbed onto it. I wanted to ask you, you know, after all these TV credits and all the work that you've done, what led you to understand, oh, I'm doing something that I can share with other people, or I've got this like knack for helping. Can you help us understand a little bit of that story?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I would like to say this all started out of necessity, out of people, actors raising their hand. I moved back to LA for the second time in 2017 after trying it the first time in 2011. Wasn't prepared, didn't know what I didn't know, thought I was doing all the things. I mean, I submitted on Actors Access, right? Now I'm waiting, right? Right. So coming back as I like to say, as a woman rebuilt, more grounded, more in tune with myself and what I had to offer, I just really started sharing on Facebook back when Facebook Live was a new thing. And I was just like, I don't know, I'm going to go on Facebook and just say this is my audition today. And what I found was people started asking questions and wanting more information. And as I looked around, I saw that no one was really offering that kind of tangible, real talk, no fluff. Hey, this is how it went. And because I am an actor first, I'm able to talk to my peers in a way that is our language, in a way that is easy to understand. And people just kept raising their hand, Brian, asking more questions. And I saw there was a need. And I saw that when I shared tips and I really broke it down, people would try them and then come back to me with testimonies and DMs and telling me, oh my gosh, that worked for me. And thank you so much for just telling me the real deal. No one ever talked to me about the money. No one ever really spoke to what I like to say, the soul of the artist. And that's actually why I really feel connected to you, Brian, when we met in Portland that time. And I saw the work that you did and how you spoke, how you speak to your audience. I felt connected to you because I don't feel like there are enough coaches who teach beyond the craft, who teach beyond the technique. Yes, that is extremely important, but who's speaking to the soul of the artist when in the quiet of night, when they're dealing with rejection, when they're dealing with fear and frustration, like who speaks to that part of us? And I just found that that was resonating with people, and it resonated with me. I show up as a fully 100% authentic version of myself, and people who like it, and people who don't, and that's cool. So yeah, I just realized as I saw people getting results and they kept basically asking for more, I just kept going and allowed myself honestly to be obedient and just keep showing up. And I kept saying, my purpose has to be bigger than my fear. I don't know where this is supposed to go, where it's supposed to lead. I'll get help along the way from coaches of my own. And here we are.
Oh, I love that so much. And one of the things you just said that I just grabbed onto is you were obedient to your purpose. That's such a great use of that word that like I just listened to. There's a feedback loop here that what I'm doing is making a difference, and I listened to it, and that purpose became bigger than any fear around like, what about showing up or being seen or thinking that I know more than someone else? It became louder, that desire to serve became louder. And I'm curious about, because like you said, you're an actress first. How has being this kind of an expert affected who you are as an actor? Do you look at auditions differently? Do you look at going out in the world differently, being on set? Tell me how they two like bounce off each other.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I always say be exceptional in all that you do. I don't care if you're a cashier, a waitress, or you work a 9 to 5 at some fancy corporation, like be exceptional in all that you do. So because I teach this, it only forces me to, the teacher teaches themselves. So it only forces me to keep my expectations high, because now I know people are also watching me. Even when pre-pandemic, going into waiting rooms and knowing that I might see people who I'm coaching or who know me, but we've never talked to each other. Like, what kind of example are you leading? But also, in addition to that, the connections that I've been making with casting directors, with other coaches in this space, it just, I think I would like to think that they see me as an artist who takes themselves and their craft seriously, to the point that I would be audacious enough to try to tell someone else, so give them tips on how to be better, And I think, the first time I lived in LA, I felt a very much a lack mentality amongst my peers, where people didn't feel like they weren't sharing anything. Okay, once they made it, I'm using air quotes there, I felt like no one was sending the elevator back down. And I'm a big student of law of attraction, and as you already know. So I just feel like, it's just impacted me and just forced me to be more professional in everything that I do. And I'm not mad.
But I love that. It's forced me to be more professional. I just love that. And also what I hear is, my eyes and my ears are receiving for me and also my students anytime I'm out in the world. Like, I'm receiving what I'm not just listening as me in the room for the audition. I'm also, what is the lesson? I'm also, so there's what I always find is when we take the focus off of ourselves and it's about how we're serving, like, we suddenly can hear better, we suddenly can receive better. So really when it comes down to, even in the audition room, Christine, are there places where, as the booking magnet, where you come to, you're like, oh, I'm a little nervous, or like, there are places where you feel that itch, that little sneaky voice that comes in? Is there places where you still feel that?
Oh, yes. And I'm like, yes. However, I like to think that I have tools, and that's where I coach from. So, the way you were just saying about having an audition, when I go on set, the first time I did a multicam for a Disney show, the first thing I did after I shot was come to my students and like, oh my gosh, guys, this is what I learned yesterday at Disney. I didn't know this. Don't put your script down. You never put the script down until the final run through, like little things that I really didn't know. And so I show up in an exploratory way, like ready to be a student and a sponge. But then my students love it because I come back and give them all the tea. They're like, oh, I didn't know that either. I'm like, hey, I never pretend to know more than I don't. I'm like, I'm learning too. So I'm gonna teach you as I learn. But as far as nerves, I personally don't like to even give nerves that title. I talk about that a lot in my book, Playing Small. I turn nerves into excitement. I understand that when those feelings come, the bubbly stomach, and like the anxiety, however, whatever you want to call it, I understand that's happening because I care. I want to do a good job. It matters to me. But something that I teach after having horrendous auditions, let me be clear. I mean, we've all had some bad ones, and I share many very openly to my community. But there was one in particular, one horrible audition. It was many years ago, first time in LA, the whole I didn't know what I didn't know time. It was for a pilot that ended up being a successful show. We won't say the name. And it was a horrible audition. I mean, it was just, I let my nerves take over. I let the look on a casting director's face intimidate me. Like, I let the people in the waiting room, because I knew some of their names from television, intimidate me. And I remember leaving that audition very clear I didn't do a good job. And I remember sobbing in my geo prison. But I remember after the tears were over, I made a commitment to myself that I share with my students. And I say, to this day, even when I have those feelings, no one, no thing, or no feeling will prevent me from telling my story. Because at the end of the day, I've been given a script, I've been given an opportunity, and I'm going to tell this story no matter what the heck is going on. And that has changed my life.
Wow, that is so powerful. I love that. It reminds me, this is such a weird thing to be reminded of, is like, they can't take that away from me. Like the song, like there's no matter what, they can't take that away from me, is that I'm going to get to tell my story. I get to tell my story today. So what I also hear in that is there's something, and this I think speaks to the soul of the actor you were talking about, certainly the soul of the artist, is even though everyone's doing the same script, the story is yours. And I imagine that that's something you really work on with your students and the actors you work with. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, yeah, I love to just focus on, without getting deep into brand and type. We are one of a kind, unique beings, never duplicated, right? So I don't care if 5 of us have the same audition, each one of us is going to put our special sprinkle of Lowry's on, as I like to say, a little seasoning stuff, our own version of that. You might come with the garlic powder. He might come with the garlic salt, the Lowry's, onion powder. Like, at the end of the day, it's all going to taste good, but only you can be you, And so I rest in that. And I'm grateful for that. And so once you really start to understand that you can never be someone else and no one can ever be you, you showing up, by the mere fact you show up, it will be different. It will be unique. So then, yes, your job is, break down your script, know your beats, know script analysis, basic things like that. But I think it's that owning. I think that's the part of that empowerment. There's so much, this industry, Brian, so many actors and it's because it's years and years of banging over our head of what not to do. This one says, don't do this. This one says, don't do that. And it leaves actors in a state of confusion. And when you really start to say, hey, you're empowered to make a choice. You're empowered. Like, just know they sent this script to you. It's already going to be great because you're going to show up as this character. And just when you are reminded of that, you makes you show up to the work in a different way. Like, wow, they're going to be excited. I do all kinds of mental work. They're going to be excited to see me. I visualize casting, watching my tape on Actors Access, saying, hey, come here, did you see Christina on tape? Play it again. Like, I go through the whole visualization of like, they are so lucky they get to witness my work again. I'm grateful to be called in and they get to see me.
I love the way you say that, Christine, because right now I'm beaming right now because I love, so much of auditions are now becoming on tape. And I don't think actors knew how much they loved the energy in the room until this moment when they discovered it. Because so much in the room was like, well, what are they going to react after? How am I going to take the adjustment? There was and now where we've been starved of that because so many actors are having to do self-tapes now, this new way of relating to the work. And I love what you just said is like, I imagine them saying, come over here and watch my tape and look at this and look at what Christine gave us. Like, that is so powerful. I think everybody got their money's worth listening to this episode right now. I think that is so huge.
And it helps you just feel like, check, I booked the room. Like booking the room, as is it's an inner game. It's an inner understanding. It's an inner feeling. When you submitted a tape, that was garbage. Like, you waited to the last minute. You procrastinated. You were barely off book. You didn't dress the part. You're reading in the wrong tone. You're reading with a CW vibe when it's an NBC vibe. Like, if you know. So you have to, that there's a standard, but there's that feeling, Brian, all actors have. When you send that tape, you like, I don't know who they're going to pick, but if they don't pick me, whoever they pick better be bad because that was amazing.
Yes, totally. Yes. And what I love is you're saying you can bring that for yourself at home, regardless of someone being in the room. Like now, like one of the things I think has come from self-tapes is without becoming perfectionist. And I wonder if you have a thought here is, because you could tape something 30 times before you send it off, but like how you can now say, oh, I booked the room with that shot. Like that was my take. Do you find that a lot of actors, now that they have this self-tape free reign, I put that in quotes, of to like record it 35 times, that it becomes a new challenge to let go of getting it perfect?
Yes, absolutely. And how I help my students around that, I remind them of how being on set works. Because see, the tips and like the way I teach, it's not, yes, it's for auditions, but I'm always very clear. You can use everything that I'm teaching you on set. I need you to, because when you're on set, depending on the show, depending on the genre, the network, the director, you may get 3 takes and then they're moving on. Especially if you're co-star, maybe one day guest star, they're not going to sit here for you. Somebody told me the other day, it took me 5 hours. I said, no, you're not ready. I can already tell you don't have a process. 5 hours for what? Ain't nobody shooting nothing 5 hours, not one scene. So you got to get that together. So I always tell actors, give yourself a cap. Give yourselves a 3-take max. And from those 3 takes, you should have it. And if you repeatedly do not, part of your process is not on par. There's a
I love what you're saying, because what I'm hearing you say is your process is leading up to flicking the camera on. Like your process is up to, and then you're doing. So when you turn the camera on and you're recording, you've done all the work. Now it's time to fly. Let's fly now.
Yeah, and that's helpful because listen, if you're an actor and you took 5 hours, or you did 40 takes, and I'm not trying to be funny. Like I hear these stories. If you did that, you happen to book that role, your confidence is really going to be shaky when you get to set and they say, hey, Brian, we're ready for you on set. All right, let's do a quick rehearsal. Okay, great. Do it one time. All right, now let's do it for marks. Okay, let's shoot. And if in your head, you're used to your process, because you're just solidifying your process every audition. So that's why I love self-taping, because I'm getting better every take. But if you have it in your head, it takes me 40 takes, you're not going to be happy on set. You're not going to feel like you got it. And you're going to panic when that time, when they're going to do that wide, they're going to do that mid shot, and they're going to do that close up. And if you don't feel confident and secure in your process, it's going to show in your eyes. And like I always say, the camera is a lie detector and the eyes tell no lies. And so we will all see. And then you'll be like, why did my scene get cut? You weren't ready.
Ooh, that cut, that hurt. And I think it's deep, and it's so good, because what I hear you saying is I'm not, yes, I'm preparing for the audition, but I'm really preparing for who I'm going to be on set that day.
Yes.
That's why I'm preparing for 3 takes. I'm preparing for, this is on the studio lot. This is me on set today. I'm not preparing for my audition, because I need to put in a perfect self-tape to get the job is so different than how you're going to show up to set. And so I just love that that's how you're preparing mindset wise. So wait, there was a part of your story that really captivated me, which is I came to LA, I didn't know what that guy was doing, and I went back to New York. So tail between your legs, going back to
I went back to Atlanta. I went back to Atlanta to my mother's basement. Hello.
Oh, okay.
Post Broadway, did Lion King for 5 years.
Right.
And I was in LA in 2000. I left the Vegas company, drove on New Year's Eve night, rented a room from a sweet Jewish lady named Debbie. We're still friends. And I was just here. Like, hello, I'm talented. I have Broadway credits, guys. I did a couple of films. Not enough.
Yeah.
Not enough. I was on the wait and hope plan. We know that plan doesn't work.
Yeah.
So yes, I packed things up, because as my savings started to dwindle, I was like, it was time for me to get a job again. And I was like, I didn't come all the way up here to just go back to work and still not have time to audition. So I was like, you know what? It's all good. I knew, and this is where I'm very transparent, why people connect with me so much, because they can see themselves in my story. I knew that I was being broken down. And I also knew, I was confident I was going to be built back up, but it's just like a building. Before you build a new building, that first building needs to be demolished and cleared away, so we can start building a new foundation, fresh foundation. And so I moved back to Atlanta, to my mother's basement, grateful that I even had a place to go, right? And I paid her some money, y'all. It wasn't like, but it was dark. And, my boyfriend at the time, I moved back, we broke up, because the man I married is not who I was dating at the time. And I just went deep into personal development. And that's one of the biggest things I pass on to anybody I work with. Get to know yourself. Work on your mindset every single day. I did that. I went back to working my old job at a nonprofit that I would talk about a lot. And I just studied. I got a private coach. I took a group Meisner class. I just was like, okay, there's clearly a disconnect between what I did on Broadway and what is happening on this screen. The notes I keep getting are, you're too big. I'm like, okay, that's not clear. Somebody break it down. And so I just started to study TV, Brian. I studied TV like it was my day job and my night job. I studied every network. I studied the tone. I studied the pace in which people talk. Then I would study film based on directors. And I was like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna study it. And that's what I did. And then I started to book, right? Couldn't help it. And then I realized, okay, I'm ready for more. Ended up getting married, fast forward, and I said, okay, once I convinced my husband, I was like, my manager, I booked a series regular in 2015 for ABC, a single cam comedy, and the show didn't get picked up, but that my team was like, sure you don't want to come back? We think you might be ready. And I was like, yeah, I was grateful for the work in Atlanta. For anybody in Atlanta listening, yes, there's work there, but I knew I wanted to be the star of the show. And I knew there weren't enough opportunities to be the number one or even a recurring guest star and get paid what I was worth in that market. And so here I am.
Christine, there's so much in that story that I love. And the part that I know that when that dark night of the soul of like, I got to pick myself up here, I'm being broken down, and I almost see you saying, and I leaned into, I need to break down so I can put it back together. Like, I need to demolish this building. I need to be willing to humble myself to this craft that I know some part of, but some part I don't know, because it's not landing the way that I want it to in the room, right? And then the part that I can imagine all your students get so excited about is this confidence around, this is what I want. And I knew that if I was going to do it, this is where it had to be, or this is where it had to go. And that decisiveness that you're kind of describing, when you talk about this with your students, how do you help them get to that place? Can you give us a little insight?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I just always reverse engineer. I'm really great at planning, right? I'm the person you want, like, I just took a vacation. I'm the one you want making the plans, right? Because at the end of the day, I ask people, what do you want? And you know, it's the hardest question to ask anybody. What do you want? Not just what do you think you can have? What do you want? And start to really get clear on that. Because I talk to people who live in a small town here, a small town there, or even a big city, but they're not happy or satisfied. I'm like, ask yourself what you want. Live your life by design. When you're clear on the what, then we can reverse engineer the how. And that might mean it's going to take a year of planning and saving. That's okay. Because at least you're clear. It might be, hey, I want to get this, I want to stack this many credits before I do this next thing. Fine. But at least we're clear on the what. And what stops people is they don't know the how. I say show up with full expectation that you will get what you desire, which is why I encourage people to do personal development, study the law of attraction, understand that you can create this life and it doesn't have to follow anybody's formula, you know, that, you know, just because something happened one way for one person doesn't mean it's going to happen that way for you. So I really just help people really get clear on the vision of what they want their life to look like. And then from there, craft a plan to get there. And then be real. I say, look, you know, I have a lot of clients in Dallas, like in Texas, and like, oh, I just am not getting enough auditions. I'm like, well, the work ain't there. We can't make work come out of nowhere. Like, we got to be realistic also. So you can either decide that, hey, my quality of life is more important, and I love it here in Dallas. I'm using Dallas as one example. Insert your city or country here. And that's okay if that's what you choose, but make sure that is what you're choosing. And understand that if you're choosing this as a quality of life, then you understand and you accept that that may come with less opportunities on a larger scale. You're okay with doing some commercials, some indie projects, and some short films. But if you're not, then you got to get clear on what you really do want.
Yeah.
And I like to be honest with people. Like, that's just, it is what it is.
Well, yeah, because otherwise you can see that actor spinning and saying, I should have more opportunity in this market. It's something that I'm doing and I'm doing it wrong. And no, let's face facts here. Right. Dallas is not the mega market that LA or New York is or Atlanta is. So we just have to be a little more almost gentle with ourselves. And if that's what you want, to make a plan. I love that. And I love that the way that you say this is like, if this is what you want, you're going to figure it. Like, I love that it is, like you said, the hardest question to ask is, I'm punching my fist, people, is like the hardest question to ask is, what do you want? Not just what you think you can have. And I think that is such a permission.
Yes.
That you give people by asking the question that way. Okay. So okay. We've done lots of TV shows. We did Broadway. So tell me, like, can you tell us a horror story? I know you gave us that audition horror story. What's a time when you were like, oh, no. Like, and let me give you more specifics. A job when you wish you hadn't taken.
Oh, I got that for you. MacGyver. CBS. No shade to the show. And I share this video is still on my YouTube channel. And it's like the worst audition I ever had or something like that. But right before we moved to LA in 2017, I was still working my day job. I worked my day job until it was time to go because I needed that money. I was working my day job and I was in the process of having garage sales every weekend, packing, planning, figuring out where I'm going to live in LA, like all of that stuff. My husband knows nobody in LA. I'm dragging him along and just a lot of pressure, as you can imagine. And I end up booking MacGyver. Now, in hindsight, I understand now that I was just stressed out from all the responsibility and change. In the moment, the question, I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? I booked MacGyver. And the way the scene was, I was this very like official, I forget even what the title was. It was one of those things where, you know, government people are talking to each other at a screen, you know, from one place or the other. And what I didn't know, because I didn't get off book for the audition, I just, you know, typed my lines out, read them like, okay, let me just do this audition really quick and be done. I book it. They needed me to tape as soon as possible. I get to set and realize I wasn't off book. It all happened so quickly. I wasn't off book. When I arrived to my trailer, I wasn't off book in the makeup chair, hair. And next thing you know, they're calling me to set and I'm still not off book. And I'm starting to get nervous and get in my head. Now I've been doing this a long time, and I had booked many jobs before that, but something about this day, the words would not stick. And it came time to film, and I thought the scene was me talking to 3 other people. I thought we were like, in my head, I thought we were all gonna be talking to each other. And they were like, no. They bring me to one area of the soundstage, and it's just one camera in my face. And like, in me doing a whole monologue to the camera. I tanked time and time and take again. And then I got in my head with each one, started thinking about how many people were on set watching me fail, like flounder. And then, you know, and the director, God bless this director, was so sweet. He came up to me, he was like, look, you're gonna, basically when I opened my mouth, when I got a line right, it was great. And he finally said, look, we're just gonna piece this together. Just hang on. I mean, he was so generous. But when I tell you, it's that moment where you can tell everyone can see the tears starting to well up, and like, you can't cry. I made it up. Ended up, I can't even say the word. The story is so rough. I got through it line by line, literally. It was the worst day I've ever had on set to this day. It never happened again. And if you watch, if those of you who are curious, if you go to my website, christinehorn.com, on my main homepage, I have the clip, and you would never know. I got so many compliments after I was done. Oh my God, you remind me of Viola Davis. Oh, that was powerful. That was so amazing. You're so captivating. And I'm like, yeah. Y'all are just trying to make me not feel bad. But it ended up looking, again, when you see the final clip, you would never know this, but it was the worst day. And then after I talked to my mom and cried, my husband, friends reminded me, Christine, you have a lot going on. Like, I was moving like in 2 days. So I was just really stressed, which brings me to why I speak to that part of us as artists. When you feel like you have a bad audition, or you feel like you tanked the room, or whatever the phrases are we want to use, I always ask, I say, what were you going through that day? Before you say what's wrong with me and question your talent and your worthiness, and should you just quit, check in. What happened today? What was going on with me today? And 9 times out of 10, you reverse that whole day, and you be like, right there. Right, that was the moment. Mm-hmm. So I understand it was because I was stressed, grateful for that director. They didn't cut me. It came out great. But that's one of my worst stories.
Yeah. Well, and so what I love about it is you learned things from it, and you kind of gave us a great shape for us for what we would want to take around. So when you have them, you say reverse engineer, like go back and look and see what, went wrong on that day or whatever. Are there ways that you think about actors preparing on the day of auditions that have to do with, we can't have a perfect life on that day, but when you're talking about the audition day, are there certain things that you always share? Like, here's some go-tos on audition day that to really set you up so that day you can be who you want to be in the room. Is there anything you would share about that?
Oh, absolutely. And I would also add on the day of audition or on the day of shooting, I have what I call my Get Booked playlist. And I have multiple playlists based on the kind of character I may be portraying that day. So if it's kind of a fierce, sexy character, I have fierce, confident, sexy music, like Beyonce is, of course, on all playlists in some way, right? But there's a playlist for that. If the character requires something that's a bit more somber and sad, I have a playlist for that. So that's the main thing. I just get in the zone, the headspace I need to be in for the day. Like you said, you can't start. You may not necessarily be able to start with yoga and meditate and have your tea and, do all the things. If you do have the time, then do it. But if you don't, have at least a succinct process. And for me, music guides me very much so. And that's what I focus on. And I personally, if I'm able, if I have the leisure of the time, I like to prep the clothes the night before, right? For my ladies who can relate, prep your wigs the night before. Like, have all the things out so that if you know that getting ready takes you a little longer and that's the thing that stresses you out, like, know what your stressors are, and try to, prep for those as much as possible. But for me, the biggest thing is music, and always tell yourself you have to be on set or at the audition spot 30 minutes earlier than you have to. I do not play the late game. Being late is an unnecessary stress that you're causing yourself. I don't care where you live. It's a joke with my husband, especially in LA, like, oh, it's 5 miles away. That'll be 42 minutes. You'd be like, okay, let me just prepare to be, I just prepare to be early. I'd rather be sitting in the parking lot at base camp or sitting in the parking lot or my spot for an audition 30 minutes early than to be rushing in the room, because then you bring all that rushed, frazzled energy into the room.
Yeah. And I love the way you say this, because what the way you're talking about this is an element of self-care. It's know the places where you get stressed and take care of them in advance, or have a plan for them in advance. Because if you know, as you're walking out the door, you're always stressed about grabbing that coffee, get the cup out beforehand,
Right.
or whatever, like start like, and this is all the way it's like parenting your creative self, or parent your artist, so that you can have the day that you want to have. And like you said, it's this privilege to be able to tell the story that you want to tell. So why wouldn't you give yourself the gift of feeling the best you can on the day? But there's this other side of this, Christine, that I wonder if you ever talk about, where it's like the audition becomes an event. And so it's so big that there's so much energy put around it that it almost like you've gone past the mark of helping yourself. Do you ever talk about that?
Yeah, I think in general, I'm always like, don't make them so precious. That's why, sometimes some of my students will say, oh, okay, I'm good in the co-stars, but how do you prep for the guest star? I'm like, the same. Well, what about the regular? What if it's like 12 pages? The same. Like, it's the same. And the more you remind yourself, 2 pages, 10 pages, it's the same. That's when they stop becoming so precious. Number one, that's just period. And a mindset hack, I don't know, hack, right word. This is what I do. It goes back to what I imagine, I visualized beforehand. I imagine that when I walk in the room, inwardly, the casting is like, oh my gosh, she's here. Oh, I hope she's the one, because we've seen so many people, she needs to be it. Like, the way that I envision casting rooting for me is ridiculous.
Oh, Christine, I just love it, because I just picture the people, like, when you go to see a play or a Beyonce concert and it goes dark before it starts, it's like,
yes, that excitement.
That's what you bring. You're like, that's what's in that room for me. That is what's in that room. Or that's what's going to happen when they open that self-tape. And the part about that's so crazy of this is, and I know right now, like, I have all those feelings inside because I just pictured that. It is such a gift to give someone that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
To give them the benefit of that, to believe that you can offer that feeling. And how much freer does that make you feel? Like intake of breath, right? It's such a gift. Yeah.
I love that. I love that analogy you just gave, because I, coming from the theater, no better excitement when those lights go out and that curtain's about to rise, right? So yes, that's the inner work that I do. So if I'm doing all of that, I don't have time. I tell people, use your imagination as a tool, not as a weapon. Our job is to use our imagination for our work, but instead, too many times we're using it to imagine the worst case scenario. And it goes back to the question I asked earlier, is that what you want? Do you want a trip? Do you want to forget your lines? No. Well, what do you want? Well, I want to do a good job. Okay, well, how would you do that? Why would that be so for you? Well, because I'm going to prep, I'm going to have everything ready, I'm going to feel confident. Okay, great. Just keep focusing on what you want, and only put that out there. And I know it can be a tug of war, but you go into this battle knowing it's a tug of war, and be determined to win on the side of what's positive and what feels good. Because I would say, does it feel good to think those thoughts about you messing up and tanking? No. Then lean toward what feels good. It's like plants. Plants always lean toward the light. Be that. I mean, just go toward what feels good. And when you show up to an audition or on set with that kind of energy, so that's why people are like, gosh, Christine, there's such a light about you. I'm like, I know.
Yes.
I work on this light every day. You know what I mean? Like, for myself. So I'm not surprised that you feel it.
Yeah, I love that. And I love what you just said also, is our job, an actor's job is to, or any creative's job is to hone their imagination. So why would you pull out your best, most beautiful tool and start to use it against yourself and start to use it to go the other direction? And I always think about this, and I have this definition of fantasizing versus imagining. And fantasizing being, what's the paycheck? Am I going to get to act with Brad Pitt? Who else is going to be on set with me? And what about when the car picks me up? I can't wait to wear those clothes, which is different than, what do I imagine this character, like the clothes are going to feel like on this character? And what do I think her hair is like? And that it's in the craft as opposed to in the win, I put in quotes, almost like the dirty version of the win. And somehow does that resonate for you in the kind of way you talk about this?
Well, for me, because I'm here for craft. I've been doing this for me. I've been doing this since I was and they say, what do you want to be when you grow up? A firefighter, an astronaut? I was like, singer, actor, dancer. I knew since I was very, very, very young. So, and I did it for free, many years. I used to perform here in Los Angeles at the 99-seat theaters post Lion King for $11 a show. Like, I love this thing. So everything else is bonus. Yes, I love my trailer. I love getting picked up, but I love this work. I love this work, and I will do it. I'm gonna be like Cicely Tyson up in here, honey. You have to, when I go in the ground, that's when it's gonna be over.
Oh, yes. So Christine, I know that tons of people listening are going to be like, where can I get some more? And you have this really incredible thing coming up. Can you tell us all about it and how we can get involved? And I'll make sure, of course, I'll link to it in the show notes, but can you just tell us all about it so we can all learn more from? We just want to suckle at the teat of Christine's magnificence.
Well, first and foremost, and I thank you for that. But first and foremost, if you just want to connect with me, my wonderful community is called Hollywood Bound Actors. We have an amazing free Facebook group. So if nothing else, come join us there. It's always a party there, and I'm always going live and sharing great information. But the big thing that I have coming up that I'm really excited about is Booking Magnet Live. And that is happening on Saturday, August 28th, 2021, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And no matter what country you're in, what time zone you're in, all registrants get access to the replay, and you can just watch it. It's going to be a full day, Brian, of panels and workshops, everything from improv, visual brand experts. We have a casting director panel with casting directors from some of the top hit shows out here that on network television right now. I also thought it was important that actors, especially depending on where you are in your career, beginner or super advanced, that you hear from working actors, and not just in LA, but in New York, in Atlanta, and hear what they think it takes to be a booking magnet. Our goal during this whole workshop in this panel is for you to leave feeling empowered and energized. So if you want to learn what it takes to book more roles in film and TV, if you want to boost your confidence, like we've been talking about in your virtual auditions and your self-tape auditions, you're going to love this, because I'm going to do a whole afternoon on how to book more TV. You know, that's my sweet spot, Brian. Right. And how to sustain a successful career. You know, some people who are on the panel have been on shows for 8 years. Some are doing a bunch of guest stars. Some do a lot of co-stars, commercials. You know, how to show up to being a booking magnet is not just about the number of things that you book, but it really is a mindset. And so it's not just, oh, here's this ring light, you need this backdrop. Like, yes, that's important, but I want to get to the root of the things. Even when I talk to the casting directors on the panel, we're going to get pretty deep about what they feel, what they see. So I have all these made up stories in my head about how they feel about me, but I'm curious to know and pick their brain about what they think makes an actor stand out beyond just what your brand and your type is. Like, what is it that working successful actors really bring to the table? So I'm super excited about it. It's such a nominal fee. It's gonna be a great event. I'm so excited about it.
And it's all day. And what I love is, Christine, what I know that we can trust is that you're not going to settle for the light answer, because Christine gets to the heart of things. And so that's why I think this panel, the entire day, will be like, yeah. And also, let's make sure we all have there's going to be so many incredible takeaways just because of who you are, that you would never want anyone to attend not to have all that good, juicy stuff. So I think and I love that it's in one day. Like, can you give it to me all in one day? You can? Awesome. I'm there. Like, please. Right?
Brian, I am not a fan of breadcrumbs. And that's what I always tell my clients. Like, if people come to me and they take my course and they're like, wow, you really just laid it all out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not here for you to sign up for 101 and then class 201 and then class 301. Here it is. Digest it at your pace. But here it is. And I want you to take it and go forth. And then you might study with another coach or another class. You should. Our learning never stops. But, you know, everyone who I've invited was invited for a very specific reason. And I believe the more actors can be empowered in their work, the more they can stand in confidence and stop searching for external validation for every audition that you have. Because when you're uploading auditions and you're still questioning and wishing someone could just look at it to say, that was good, you have to have an internal knowing. You do. And that's my mission. So I hope, you know, you will join me if this resonates with you. join me, because it's going to be an amazing day. And it's just the beginning. I've been doing live events for the past several years. The pandemic paused us for 2020. Yeah, 2020. So we're gearing back up. So we're putting our foot in the water with this virtual interactive event, because it will be interactive. And so yeah, that's what's happening.
Awesome, Christine. I'm so grateful I mean, even today, I feel like we got such a masterclass in kind of a mindset. And so I just appreciate that there's a place for us to go deeper with that. And I'm so grateful too for spending this time with me, because you're a busy lady who helps a lot of people. And this was such a gift for me and for this audience. And I want to just say from the bottom of my heart, I learned some really beautiful new language to talk to people that I work with. And it really, I think, helps to have someone who lies on the vibes that you're on, that I'm on, and to have language, I think, is so much of what an actor is processing is how to think about things. And sometimes, like you said, those thoughts or those someone calls them like bumper sticker thoughts. Sometimes you need a bumper sticker thought to grab onto, to get yourself out of the hole, or to stop the car that's driving towards crazy town. And just that you had some beautiful moments of that in here. And so I'm just so great that we were able to capture that and spend the time together. So thank you so much for being with me today.
I'm so happy. And we share a lot of the same clients, people like, oh, I work with Brian, and I work, it's awesome. I think what we're offering this community is a gift, and I'm grateful for it. And I'm so glad we're connected, and the more people we can help, the better. Yeah.
You heard it. Preach. Thank you.